morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, August 30th. Welcome to the Sports Note. We're going to talk about something today that we've never discussed live here on the channel, and that would actually be professional wrestling. Now, you might say, Jim, it's not a sport. Why are you covering this on the channel? You won't cover soccer, but yet you'll cover pro wrestling? Yeah, because I've been a pro wrestling fan for over 40 years. I've attended a number of events live in person. You can see the two shirts here behind me focus in on All Elite Wrestling, AEW, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Is AEW just put on the biggest show in their history, and quite possibly one of the biggest shows in the history of professional wrestling this past Sunday, when they sold out and oversold Wembley Stadium, legendary Wembley Stadium in London, England, to the tune of more than 80,000 fans in advance, to where they had to go back and put tickets back on sale multiple times as they were opening up more space for their all-out pay-per-view. Now, AEW was putting this show on because typically Labor Day weekend they put on a show in Chicago known as All Out. Now, All Out will be coming up this coming Sunday, going into the Labor Day holiday, but the talk on everybody's mind is still what happened with All In. All In was actually announced nearly a year ago, and was also announced after the success of what they did on Sunday. They already announced that they're going back to Wembley next year, so it's going to be a very, very weird kind of characteristic where they're having major pay-per-views on back-to-back weekends. But All Out did not disappoint. All Out was All In was one of the most impressive wrestling shows I've ever seen, from top to bottom, from the opening contest on the pay-per-view all the way up to the main event. Every match delivered, regardless of how long it went. It wasn't like a typical WWE type pay-per-view where you had filler matches that didn't really do anything. You had FTR and the Young Bucks putting on one of the best tag team matches I've seen in years for the AEW tag team titles, and there was a lot of talk that, based off of controversy that happened in the days leading up to the match, was it even going to take place, with one of the members of FTR running into legal trouble. We won't talk about that today. We actually saw Saraya Bevis, who goes by the name Saraya, formerly known as Paige in the WWE, win her first championship in 9.5 years by capturing the AEW Women's World Championship in a four-way match against Toni Storm, defending champion Hikaru Shida, and also Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And yeah, I'll go ahead and do the DMD, as I've met Britt a number of times when she was on the Indies, as she was trained by Johnny Gargano here in Cleveland. And I've met Gargano and his wife Candice LeRae a number of times as well. But Saraya had come back last year after having retired for more than 3 years because of a severe neck injury that required multiple surgeries, and now she's world champion. So congratulations to her, not only winning her first title in 9.5 years, but doing it in front of her home fans in England, as Saraya is from the UK. We saw a knockdown, drag-out street fight between the Blackpool Combat Club and Associates going up against the Best Friends, Eddie Kingston and Penta El Zero. And we're going to tie that match into what we're going to talk about here in just a second. Although this intro has gone very long, we actually saw the continuation, much pleasing to my heart, of this guy right here, Adam Cole, baby. And MJF, commonly known as the Brochachos, or Better Than You, Baby. The best thing on AEW TV, bar none, the last 3 months. That keeps going even though MJF retains, but they won the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles in the opening contest of the pre-show. Now, let's get into the topic at hand. The other match on the pre-show was for the FTW Championship between Jack Perry, the son of late actor Luke Perry, yes, that Luke Perry from 90210 fame, and Hook, who is the son of legendary ECW wrestler Taz, famed color commentator as well. Now, the FTW title was founded in the original ECW back in the late 90s. It was created by Taz, real name Peter Sinercha, to basically give him a title to build him up as a push towards the World Championship held by Shane Douglas at the time. The FTW title in recent years has kind of taken on the persona of more of a hardcore type championship. Anything goes, no rules, etc. And that's actually what happened here, is that Perry had won the title about a month ago from Hook, handing Hook his first professional defeat, according to the storylines. And then had started to take on some ECW originals, including Rob Van Dam, and was looking to retire the title at the pay-per-view when he was kind of attacked from behind by Hook, and then who challenged Perry for the FTW title on the All In show. Now, how this match kind of worked was. Leading into it, there was talk that Perry wanted to kind of use some hardcore elements like ECW, but he also wanted to use real broken glass at one point, which kind of caught the ear and the ire of several of the performers backstage, and he was told, no, don't do that, because if there was any glass remaining, they not only have to clean it up, but then you also run the risk of some of the other talent who were going to come after him that night, possibly getting cut or severely hurt as well by stray fragments, depending on where they landed. So through the course of the match, they proceeded to fight back towards the entranceway, a good 50 yards away from the ring, and had fought on the top of a car, on the limousine that Perry's character had pulled into the entrance ramp for his introduction, so to speak. And Hook had suplexed Perry onto the hood of the car, namely kind of driving him into the windshield. Perry was not cut at that point, that at least I can remember. But then proceeded to, one of the wrestlers that took ire with this was CM Punk, who my brother, my best friend, and myself drove to see when he came back after 7.5 years away from wrestling back in August of 2021. We got some of the last tickets there. We had been a fan of Punk's as a wrestler for a while, but then Punk again was one of the people who said to Perry, "Don't do this." As one of the old heads in the locker room. Perry, I want to say, is 26. Punk is 44, 43, 44. He's pretty close to my age, and is well respected backstage by some of his peers. Although the problem is that last year Punk decided to shoot off his mouth after winning the World Championship at the All Out pay-per-view. Now, AEW does something that has now been copied by the WWE, although AEW kind of copied it from New Japan Pro Wrestling, that after these shows, they have a media scrum with actual wrestling journalists or even some major journalists from outlets like ESPN or Fox Sports or CBS. They get all the quote unquote dirt sheets involved, which are the internet wrestling sites and reporters. And Punk decided to shoot off his mouth and air a lot of dirty laundry and a lot of grievances as what they call a shoot, where it's not part of the script, against 3 members of the AEW front office, and that would be Matt and Nick Jackson, collectively known as the Young Bucks, and Tyson Smith, who wrestles under the name Kenny Omega. Now, I know that Matt and Nick Jackson, that's their ring names. I want to say it's Maisie. Don't quote me on that. I know it's in the blog. I don't have time to look that up at the moment here. But he decided to spout off against them, in addition to wrestler who performs under the name of Hangman Adam Page, who are the executive vice presidents and 4 of the 5 guys kind of involved in bringing AEW to life after the original All In pay-per-view back in 2018. The success of that did so well that it turned into another pay-per-view, which in turn created the AEW company altogether, which is now run and overseen by Tony Khan, who is the son of Jacksonville Jaguars owner Shad Khan. The aftermath of that is Punk had just won the world title, and Tony Khan sitting 4 feet next to him when this happened. The 3 members of the Elite, the 2 Jacksons and Omega, go into the locker room. There's a physical dust-up involved, and all 4 members are indefinitely suspended. Now, what had also happened is that the Bucks and Omega returned in November, and this was again right around Labor Day of last year. They returned in November. Punk actually had not returned until 9 months later, as he had also suffered a torn tricep as part of the dust up, and also kind of earlier in the day, and the dust up exasperated it, and was getting surgery. So Punk returned just a couple of months ago here. Earlier this year to kind of debut AEW's new Saturday Night Live television show, Collision. And Punk confronting Perry backstage at the pay-per-view was very, very interesting, as Perry, the whole thing that brought this on, that there was another dust-up involving Punk, Phil Brooks, backstage on Sunday here, in consecutive years at almost the same pay-per-view and around the same time, was that after Perry's character had kind of taken control of the match and kind of temporarily incapacitated Hook, he pounded on the broken part of the windshield and said, "You see this? Real glass. Go cry me a river." And that was a direct shot at what he had actually been told by Brooks backstage just a few weeks earlier. After the match, which Hook had won, Perry came to the back, and as he was literally going down the stairs from what they call the gorilla position, which is where the wrestlers basically line up before they come out of the curtain and onto the stage, with their music and their entrance videos and their pyro if necessary, was Perry immediately was confronted by Punk, as a lot of the wrestlers end up watching the show on monitors just outside of the gorilla position, and Punk certainly seemed to take umbrage. I don't remember the exact thing that was said, but something got triggered, and basically there's one report that says a punch got thrown, another one says it wasn't. There was also a report that Punk had kind of put Perry in kind of like a I don't want to say like a rear naked chokehold, but it definitely kind of put his arm around Perry's neck to try and restrain him and kind of calm the situation down, with Punk having a mixed martial arts background as well. He wasn't looking to choke Perry out. He was trying to diffuse the situation. But again, it's another situation that, as great as the show was, it's now got Phil Brooks' name linked to it in a very, very negative connotation, which is actually going to affect what happens tonight with the AEW live TV broadcast of their Dynamite show, which is their weekly episodic show and their big ratings juggernaut, much like how WWE has Monday Night Raw. There's a lot of talent who might have been there's some talent who were having travel issues coming back from London. There were some talent who are actually voluntarily skipping the show after asking and getting permission from Tony Khan to attend the funeral of recently passed away wrestler Wyndham Rotunda, known as Bray Wyatt, who we talked about on this past Saturday's Wise Guys show. As there's a lot of people who respected, knew, liked, and were friends of Wyndham Rotunda. And now it's also throwing a wrench into, even though Punk was probably not going to be on the show, because even to this day, after Punk came back, they put Punk on Saturdays, and then they put Buck and the Bucks and Omega typically on Wednesday nights. So this might have been one of the first times that the two have kind of crossed paths since they really split them off. Punk and Omega, Brooks and Smith have kind of hashed things out. The Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson and Punk, still have not, and there's not even any kind of confirmed reports that they've even spoken with each other, and this is going on a year now. So whether Punk was in the right at this point, kind of being the old head and saying, hey, don't use real glass here, whether it was Perry going off script, whether Perry was maybe looking to kind of start an angle with Punk afterwards, after losing the FTW title, maybe try to push him up to, run an angle later with Punk, whether this is, whether these two legitimately have beef with each other. And it's also the fact that Punk had to kind of step in, but where were some of the other veterans backstage, like a Jerry Lynn, like a Dean Malenko, like an Arn Anderson, like Tony Khan himself, telling Perry, hey, back off, watch it, don't use that. Because the irony is, and I said I was going to come back to that street fight, that Stadium Stampede later on, is one of their performers who goes under the name of Orange Cassidy had put duct tape around his fist with the sticky side out, and then broken a glass bottle into a pail, and then put that tape into the broken glass and used it to punch out Claudio Castagnoli from the Blackpool Combat Club to gain the fall. Now the thing is that this is also commonly known in other wrestling spectacles and other parts of the world as a Taipei death match, and it's a real thing where combatants will wrap up their fists, they will dip their fists in glue and then put them into broken glass, and they will basically fight with broken glass on their hands, whether it's to the death or maiming someone or whatnot. I don't know. I've only seen one other instance, and it was in the original ECW, where it was a Taipei death match. It was one of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen, scripted or not. But Perry had put his hand into the glass, but the thing was, you could obviously tell this was sugar glass. This was fake glass, because as he took his hand out, there were no large fragments. It looked more like dust than anything. It looked like the remnants that you kind of sweep up after you get the big pieces of broken glass after you break something like a window or a large bottle or something. And the bottle was not very big. The bottle might have been like a medium-sized wine bottle or something like that. It was not a very big bottle. So for that to actually not get any kind of run whatsoever, and then Perry, referencing the glass being real glass earlier, I could definitely tell where some guys may have actually taken umbrage with that, especially Brooks. But again, it's definitely not the connotation that Brooks wants, because in the aftermath now, there's talk that both Perry and Brooks have been suspended. There's no saying exactly when that suspension is going to start or how long it's going to last, and whatever fallout that might be. Because here's the thing. They still have the All Out pay-per-view coming up this weekend in Punk's hometown of Chicago. So for Punk Brooks to be left off of this card in his hometown is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. I know there's a lot of people who probably paid money expecting Brooks to be on this show. The thing is also there's not a whole lot of build towards All Out this week, considering how big of a show that they had this past week. And even going into All Out in Wembley last weekend here, they did not announce very many of the matches up until about a month before the show, and then there were several other matches, including Perry's match, that were not announced until the TV tapings on Friday night, when the talent had already flown overseas, but AEW still had to put a show on the air. So they had pre-taped a lot of that earlier in the week. So there's only been 4 matches announced for Sunday night's pay-per-view, which I probably am not going to be ordering unless something dramatic happens here with this, because they still don't have a bona fide main event announced that would warrant you paying $50 for this show, or however much it's going to be. But I can't imagine that Perry is going to be on tonight's taping or Friday night's taping or even Saturday night's TV taping. And I also can't imagine that Brooks is going to be on Saturday night's live show and then also have a match on Sunday night. If he does, that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way that Brooks can actually be involved with this. Even if he was in the right, he got physical backstage with another wrestler to where people had to be pulled apart, especially after what happened last year. And then he's going to get a free pass enough where he's going to get suspended after the show in his hometown. So let me know what you guys think. Did you see the All Out pay-per-view? Did you see All In? Do you plan on ordering All Out? If you've heard about the incident, who do you think's in the wrong? What do you think happens? We're not exactly sure if there's going to be a Wise Guys show this week because of the hurricane that's coming up the Florida Panhandle. It's already made landfall in Florida. Unfortunately, Mike is fearful that he might be in the line with this, that he might lose power. So we will actually let you guys know probably sometime Friday or early Saturday if we're even going to have a show. Worst case is we postpone this week and then we go to next week. But again, we will let you guys know. Keep very close attention to mine and Mike's Twitter, Threads, and Facebook accounts. And I will see you guys hopefully here a little later on this week. Take care.